Now, the next time you have a bite to eat, a snack, or sit down to dinner, take a moment to consider that 20 million people across most of 4 countries in Africa and the Middle East are at risk of starvation and famine. VOA's Paul Sisco reports.
The United Nations' Stephen O'Brien says the world is facing its greatest humanitarian crisis since the end of World War II.
More than 20 million people across 4 countries face starvation and famine.
Stephen Laurier is the UNICEF representative in Baidoa.
We've seen this morning as well in a nutritional center all these severely, acutely malnourished babies. Very, very sad story, where we also see the figures going up.
David Orr is the Southern African World Food Program spokesperson.
South Sudan, Somalia, Yemen, and Nigeria, the United Nations humanitarian operations in these 4 countries require more than $5.6 billion this year, and at least $4.4 billion required to the end of March to avert a catastrophe. And so far, the UN has only received $90 million. So that's 2 cents for every dollar needed.
Relief agencies estimate up to 15 million people in Somalia, Ethiopia, and Kenya are facing food and water shortages. Just 6 years ago, more than 250,000 Somalis died in drought-induced famine. AID officials say food and water exist on the planet to meet everyone's needs, but armed conflicts, often created by just a very few men, result in the misery and chaos of millions, destroying markets, crops, making necessities scarce and the money to buy them unattainable. In starving South Sudan, both rebel soldiers, led in part by Riek Machar, and President Salva Kiir's government soldiers intentionally block emergency food distribution, often by hijacking food trucks, leaving entire communities marooned in swamps filled with disease and with little to eat other than chewable plants and only dirty water to wash with and drink. On Saturday, 6 aid workers and their Kenyan escort were ambushed and killed in South Sudan while traveling from the capital Juba toward the needy in the town of Pibor. Jens Lark is with the United Nations Office of Humanitarian Affairs.
It is a country which is in the depth of a very, very vicious war. But of course, those who are responsible must be held to account.
In northeastern Nigeria, the battle grinds on between Islamic terrorists, Boko Haram and others, and the Nigerian military. The conflict has displaced millions of people, leaving more than 10 million people in desperate need of humanitarian assistance. That need has also spread to the surrounding countries in the Lake Chad region. Meanwhile, in Yemen, a trade blockade and steady aerial bombings by Saudi Arabia have destroyed the nation's economy, sending food prices soaring and pushing hundreds of thousands of mostly children to the brink of starvation. Despite scientific evidence that climate change is increasing the frequency of drought and floods, it is mostly man's inhumanity to man, not rising temperatures or this season's lack of rain, that has left many nations across Africa parched, malnourished, and in danger of famine. Paul Sisco, VOA News, Washington.